to scream.
Coast to coast.
Jimmy's on that microphone.
Just like the Lord intended.
Saying what you're afraid to say.
Truth that can be amended.
Hey!
Unleashed. Unfiltered. Unfazed. Unafraid.
Streaming.
Streamcast.
Hey.
Podcast. Every way.
From the house
of Lakey. The Lakey Towers proclaim.
This is the day the Lord has made. The show starts now in Jesus' name.
Oh, yeah.
Here we are, my friends. This show does start now. Right now, Lakey on the microphone. You're in front of the speakers just like the Lord intended. It's Friday the 13th. Everybody's scared today. I ain't scared, my friends. Friday the 13th, year of our Lord 2026. Pleased and thrilled to have you here on the show. Indeed, I am. Everybody, welcome to Friday. Yeah, last week went quick because it was a 4-day week. This week went quick because it's very busy. And yes, the screen says again, we just had a Friday the 13th last month. And here we are again, Friday the 13th, year of our Lord 2016 in March. Good to have you here on the show. A couple of stories we will dive into today. Got a question of the day. Anybody following this? The domestic or the terrorist attacks that are happening right here on the USA soil. We had the Austin, Texas shooting a couple of weeks ago. Old Dominion University and now Michigan synagogue under attack by these bat crap crazy loons that don't like America, don't like anything except their radical religion. And unfortunately, where they're among us, and many of them have been let into the country illegally. Many of them have been radicalized right here on our own U.S. soil. And you look at that, you look at what happened with the Mamdani campaign or the Mamdani regime in New York City, where they're all doing some kind of a Muslim ritual in City Hall. And I saw the meme. Can you imagine that happening in New York City on September the 12th, 2001, one day after the terrorist attacks happened there? It's really amazing how short our memories have become and how well we have been infiltrated by some that are radicals. Not everybody who practices said religion, I'm sure, has terrorist intent, but there's plenty of them here, and many of them were allowed in by Joe Biden, and many others were allowed to be radicalized here in the United States. We'll talk more about this terrorist attacks in the United States because I know they're not getting as much news perhaps as you would think, but they're not being packaged. They're not being packaged all up into one big ball. But you take the Austin shooting, you take the Old Dominion University, take Michigan synagogue. There's about 4 total that have happened in just the last few days. We heard that Iran had put out some kind of a cryptic message to activate the sleeper cells. And I guess evidently a sleeper cell is not somebody that is just a, is not somebody that is in a group. It can be just an individual radicalized person. I'm going to go back to that Austin, Texas shooting, because remember, it took them forever to say they think there might have been a religious motivation. He had a shirt on that said a property of Allah. He was screaming Allah Akbar. He was doing all the things that terrorists did. But even in the state of Texas, the FBI, everybody was like, we are investigating as to whether there could be possibly some ties to terrorism. And I never heard them come out and definitively announce it. They probably did, but the media had lost interest in it. The media loses interest in these stories because they don't want to be seen as someone criticizing that religion of peace that is out there. So it really is disgusting when you think of it in the grand scheme of things that you didn't hear much about the Austin, Texas shooting again. I'm sure this Old Dominion attack and this Michigan attack are going to disappear into the ash bin or trash bin of history, and news coverage will be very minimal on it. And that again shows you why you cannot trust the mainstream media. They will spend hours upon hours, days upon days, wall-to-wall coverage, talking about this tragedy of Nancy Guthrie missing, but these terrorist attacks that aren't just 1, not just 2, not just 3, up to 4 now in the last couple of weeks get kind of a passing news story, and no one wants to say we have a greater problem of radicalized Islamicists that are here, that part of the death cult that are here right here in the United States. So I just want you to watch the coverage of these terrorist attacks now up not just 1, not just 2, not just 3, but up to 4. There's probably, I'm guessing, some more coming, and the media will not do wall-to-wall, balls-to-the-wall coverage like they do on so many other things because it does not fit their narrative. It just doesn't, it's not the narrative they want to push. And even the law enforcement in Texas, like, well, we think there might have been terrorism involved. You really? The guy is screaming things that terrorists scream. He's wearing a shirt that says who he belongs to and who he's acting in course of. And yet we don't want to proclaim that the guy's a damn terrorist. He's a damn terrorist. And any potential damn terrorist out there should be served a notice. The Old Dominion one was fascinating. The terrorists attacked a ROTC class, ROTC, and he lost his life in that class. The ROTC members beat him to death with their hands, and he was also stabbed by a ROTC member. Law enforcement is saying good job by the ROTC members for taking out this pathetic scum of the earth terrorist that was trying to wreak havoc here in the United States of America. I know we're supposed to just, it's just a religion of peace, but I've just watched the media coverage of it. It's very disgusting and very, let's say, narrow-minded, because you're, again, not tying these four attacks together, four attacks in like 12 days. So it's not good, my friends, but fight on. This is why you have the right to keep and bear arms, and this is why that concealed carry, if you're in the state of Colorado, might be a very, very good thing, or if you're a state that has the open carry. This is why you have the guns in your home, because you never know when these radicalized demons might want to come and harm you, and when they harm you, you might need to have an itchy trigger finger with them. So serving notice, man, we'll talk more about it. The terror attacks in the United States, the Michigan synagogue, could have been much, much worse. Only one person injured in that. He drove through a wall, down a hallway, and was heading towards more, and another security guard shot him. One injured was the security guard that got hit by the car coming in the building, but this guy was met with a bullet. And that's how you stop these demons, is right there in the physical form, is that you shoot them, you kill them. The dead. And spiritually, you pray against that demonic force, but physically, you can use a bullet. And have your head on a swivel, because Iran is going down in a blaze of glory, flushing down the ash heap or the toilet of history for all they've stood for the last 47 years. And the last bit of the demonic activity is overflowing right here in America. And have your head on a swivel. I'll come back to the story in a moment about, can Iran tag outside of these random lone wolves and or terror pools? Are they able to? What kind of damage can they do in America? I want to talk about that here in just a moment. But it is Friday the 13th. It is a Friday. We don't want to get too amped up and, too animated or too stressed out on a Friday. We want to head into the weekend with some fun. And so one of the questions I have for you is, first of all, Friday the 13th, happy Friday the 13th. Is anybody really superstitious about that? Or as it says on that television show, is anybody just a little bit stitious? If you're not superstitious, are you a little bit stitious when it comes to Friday the 13th? I'm really not. I was born on the 13th day of the month, so I think it's a glorious day. And I said that last month. But you know what? Something I noticed, and this is a news story there, that there's always seems to be tattoo deals. And I don't know, Delilah told me this, so I started noticing it as well. Well, she thinks her body's a canvas. She's got stuff all over her. There's always Friday the 13th tattoo deals. I don't know if you have noticed that, but it happens. If you're in the tattoo market, you can probably get a bargain today if you want to tat your body up. I can see some of you people, like probably Arloa in Texas, is headed down to the nearest tattoo parlor right now. She's going to get in line. Okay, man, maybe you're not a tattoo crowd, but it is an interesting story. Why are there always deals for tattoos, and they seem to go hand in hand on Friday the 13th? I didn't know this was the case. Delilah told me. She goes, hey, tomorrow's a great day to get tattooed. And I said, what are you talking about? She says, the Friday the 13th deal. Well, giving out deals and discounts on Friday the 13th isn't a new thing. I mean, Chipotle, I guess, is offering buy one, get one free deal for those who flash a real or fake tattoo. So you have a fake one. You can get something, buy one, get one free at Chipotle. But even getting something free when you buy one at Chipotle, it's still a second mortgage. That's the most expensive, overrated, fake Mexican food you will ever find. And I don't enjoy it at all. I mean, as I told you the story of my son and I going there during this break, and I'm thinking, I'm going to have to sell a car. I'm going to have to sell a car to pay for this damn meal. Chipotle. Yeah. Buy one, get one free. It's still overpriced. I don't know how you go there. I don't know how anybody can spend any money there. Well, Friday the 13th, discounted tattoos go hand in hand. This is a tradition. I don't know if you know this. This is a tradition that dates back to the mid-1990s. Now, I was in Texas in the mid-1990s. and I didn't know this happened, but it happened. A shop in Dallas, Texas held a Friday the 13th tattoo marathon. It was a hit, and the idea started to spread across the country. A lot of the tattoos back then that they were offering cost just $13. And so some shop in Dallas had a Friday the 13th tattoo marathon in the mid-90s, and it started to spread, and many other people started to do the same thing. The concept has now gone mainstream, and if you want a tat today, now is probably a good time to get one, and you can get at discounted prices today. So I didn't know this. I did up until now. I was in the Dallas in the mid-90s. I didn't get here till the late 90s, so I was still in Dallas, and I did not know that you could that was a big tattoo deal. I guess I wasn't in a tattoo crowd. I was still not probably in a tattoo crowd. Yeah, anyway, the concept has gone mainstream, and other shops participate. And if you do want to flash your tat, even if it's fake today, from 3 to 4 p.m. today, a very small window that Chipotle is actually going to give you a bargain. The rest of the time, it's like a prison shower when you go in there. It's very dangerous to you, and it hurts. That's a bad analogy. Sorry about that. It's Friday. It's a live show. I'm unleashed, my friends, and I'm unfiltered. Go to any Chipotle from 3 to 4 p.m. today. You show them your real or fake ink, and you're going to get a buy one, get one free entree compliments of that fake tattoo you have. So anyway, if you want a tat today, Delilah says go get one. And if anybody would like an image of my face that you want to put on your body, we can happy to send you a photo, and you can take it to your tattoo artist and just have it put on an appropriate part of your body. Yeah, and if you want my signature, my name, my likeness, we will send that out for a small price. You know, there's an image and likeness fee, but if you do want to have anything about me tattooed on your body, I don't blame you. You'd want to be, I just don't blame you at all. All right, what else do we have here? Oh, the tattoo deals. There's a great piece in the Gateway Pundit. Outside of these sleeper cells, is there a possibility that the United States of America could be attacked by these terrorist thugs that we known as Iranian sympathizers? It really is a good piece to think about, and there's the conspiracy theory that it could happen, and then there's a real possible threat. The Iranian regime's propaganda machine, what's left of it from some bunker in some cesspool place in Iran, is in high gear, intentionally saying that they're going to attack the U.S. homeland. Disinformation networks are spinning these up, getting terrorists here to launch terrorist attacks like at Old Dominion University. But the conspiracy theory does not explain what purpose it is possible. So it's a great piece of the Gateway Pundit. And I want to put this out on the social site so you can read it. And it's really about what's spreading across Twitter, what's spreading across social media platforms, what's spreading across other platforms regarding being attacked by terrorists inspired and or sympathetic to Iran, and what type of damage they could actually do. And there's a lot of rumors and innuendos spreading out there and about the Strait of Hormuz and Old Dominion. I mean, all over the map, there's all these theories and tie-togethers and contemplations and considerations. And how much fear should we live in? How much of this is propaganda? How much could they actually perpetrate crimes on America as a country? Anyway, Donald Trump said in an interview about an FBI memo that there's an Iran revenge plot in California. Is there possible that there's going to boat offshore launching drones into the United States? That's an FBI memo that was leaked because the Oscars are coming this weekend, and they told California, you better be prepared because you could be attacked by terrorists. Well, when asked about this FBI memo and is California really in danger, Donald Trump said, quote, yes, it's being investigated, but you have a lot of things happening, and all we can do is take them as they come. The war itself is being prosecuted as well as anybody has ever seen, and other countries are telling me that too. Big countries, powerful countries. They say they've never seen anything like it, and they also agree with what I'm doing. They say it's an evil country. It's been that way for 47 years. The reporter then screamed back at the president and said, have you been briefed about how many Iranian sleeper cells there could be in the United States right now? Donald Trump answered, I have been. A lot of them came through in Biden with his stupid open border but we know where most of them are. We've got our eye on all of them, I think. They came in through the open border policies of sleepy Joe Biden, one of the worst presidents in the history of our country, if not the worst president, I think. And we've got our eyes on all of them, but the war itself is being prosecuted at a level nobody's seen before. It's pretty amazing. So the White House says, hey, we know where the sleeper cells are. We're watching them. We're trying to figure it all out, but it's all Joe Biden's fault. And that's where you have to look at the policies of Joe and Kamala. And this is the policies that if they were still in office right now, had Kamala, God forbid, won that election, we would still be seeing not just sleeper cells activated right now, but they'll be still coming to the country. And that's the policy of Joe Biden, and that's the stupidity of today's modern Democrat Party. So can the USA, Iran be struck by strike the USA? The White House says they're watching it. They're keeping a sharp eye on it. And how much of it is just kind of propaganda that Iran says they can do, and how much damage can they actually do? My advice to all of you is if you don't have your guns locked and loaded, you might want to get them locked and loaded until we get rid of these terrorist demons from America. And, there's some things that have happened here. Some of these people this is one of the reasons some people are being deported. There's some people that have become naturalized citizens, and we need to look at the process of denaturalization, that just because you were granted a naturalized citizen state does not mean that can be, why could that not be taken away? And we will send you back to the hellhole country that you left, and you can live out the rest of your godforsaken demon-possessed days in that hellhole country, squatting over a hole and using it as a toilet and scraping together food on the streets. That's all I care. Denaturalize some of these SOBs and get them the heck out of our country. I know that sounds harsh and non-sympathetic, but life or death is a very, very big deal. DOJ prosecutors say, hey, not only do you have terrorists walking around the streets in sleeper cells, tens of thousands of non-citizens are on voter rolls. Let me read that again. Tens of thousands of non-voters are on the voter rolls. We talked a little bit about this yesterday, did not have the time to get into it, but this all ties together. If you're worried about these terrorist cells, you might also want to be worrying about the people who are voting that may not be an active terrorist, but they're terrorizing the sanctity of our elections. They're in this country, they're voting when they're not really technically allowed to vote, but secretaries of states like Jenna Griswold in Colorado and other secretaries of states are allowing these people to terrorize the ballot box. And so you have to ask yourself, if they get enough terrorists, not just with willing to blow themselves up or going to universities, but if they get enough terrorists that can get registered to votes in places like California, in Colorado, where we're run by knucklehead Democrats, you have to ask how many terrorists could they get on the voter rolls to actually start affecting the overall state, not just with Democrats, but radicalized Islamicists, part of the death cult that could end up getting higher office. And they get it not because of Americans or Coloradoans or Californians vote for them, but because they have polluted the voter rolls so much. And suddenly you start getting some people that are terrorizing our elections. And you start to wonder, is that what's happening in some of these other countries, that you have tens of thousands of people voting for people like Mamdani? And if the New York City voter rolls were clean, would the election results have been the same? I don't know the answer to that, but it is worth contemplating that not only are these death cult members willing to blow things up and run children over and do all the bad things that they do and kill people and go to nightclubs in Austin and drive through a synagogue, all the things that they're willing to do, there may not be some of them that are such prone to violence of physical nature or terroristic nature, but they don't mind registering to vote in the United States. And this is where we need to have some severe action by the Department of Justice, Homeland Security. And again, some of these people need to be denaturalized. And some of you politicians like Jared Polis and Gavin Newsom or Jenna Griswold, the Secretary of State, that have allowed these people to get onto our voter rolls, I wonder if there has to be some way you can be held liable and you can be sued and you can be, if any terrorist attack happens in Colorado or in California, you know that Joe Biden's part of that. He let the persons in or he let the radicalization happen. But you also have to say, if other things happen, Who's going to be to blame? Can these people be held accountable for the hijacking of our voter rolls and being complicit in destroying the sanctity of the U.S. election? So keep an eye on it. All right, here's your question of the day. Friday the 13th, it is the 13th day of March, year of our Lord 2026. How many of you grew up in the 80s and 90s? If you are a Gen Xer like myself, you grew up in the 80s and 90s. You were born in the maybe late 60s, 70s, mid 70s, and those were your growing up days, your teenage years, maybe your college years, your high school years. And there's a lot of things that you kind of think back on and you remember and you recall. We often see, you kind of remember the trend of avocado green kitchen appliances. Anybody remember that? Shag carpeting, couches that looked like they had farm murals painted on them, the dark wood, the paneling in the house. I mean, most of us understand, you kind of have images flash in your head when I mention these types of things from the 80s and 90s. Well, there's also some things that trigger memories, not just the visual of it, but have you ever had a scent, a smell that triggers a memory that takes you back in time? If you're in your 30s, your 40s, or your 50s, you enjoyed some epic music. We had the music of the 80s, the hair bands, and you went to the 90s, moved more into the grunge thing. You had early days of what we'd call rap or hip hop. All this was happening, but we also lived through some incredible smells. And there's a new online ranking of the most nostalgic scents from the 1990s. And if you're a person of a certain age, you can probably still smell many of them, even if they're not right in front of you. Now, I immediately, when I read this, I went to cologne. And I think you remember the Drakkar cologne, the cool water cologne. That was a big one in high school. You took your football shower after the game and you put on the cool water, I think was what it's called. Another one that was a big one is the Polo. We started wearing the green Polo bottle in about 7th or 8th grade. And if you were a 7th or 8th grade boy and didn't smell like green Polo, Polo cologne, you stunk. I mean, that was the kind of the scent. And, as my son got about that same age, it's his friends and him would come over. They would all be here, and his friends would come over, and it was the Axe spray. It wasn't a specific scent of like, you got to have the Polo. It was the cheap Axe spray, the body spray, and the house smelled of stinky socks and Axe spray when my son was a young teenager. And so I want to talk about some of the smells that you remember. I immediately went to the world of cologne and Polo, Drakkar, the original, I think it's Calvin Klein that came out. That was another one, but there were certain that I can smell them now to this day. I know what they are. But here's some other ones that people put on the list, have nothing to do with cologne. This is our question of the day. What is the nostalgic scent from the 1990s or whenever it is you grew up? Maybe you're already well grown in the 90s. Why don't you let us know what the nostalgic scents are? Now, getting out of the world of colognes and perfumes, number one on the list is the smell of Play-Doh. Now, this would date back for people even further back than just the 90s, but people, when polled about the nostalgic scent of the 1990s, what made it on the list more in this little online survey was the smell of Play-Doh. The absolute smell of Play-Doh catches people. And then the next one on the list was bubble tape, the gum that you pulled out of the pink plastic puck, and there was a string of tape, Hubba Bubba or whoever made it. Yeah, the bubble tape. Number 3 on the list was scratch and sniff stickers. If I still find myself occasionally, you'll go to the store like a fragrance or something. Maybe it's in the, I don't know, some kind of an aisle, an air freshener or something. And there's a scratch, and I find myself in the aisle as a grown adult scratching that thing, trying to sniff it. I probably look foolish, but I'm sure everyone else is scratching and sniffing that. Scratch and sniff stickers, people can remember that. Now, this was probably number 1 in my book. When I read the line, I said, oh, yeah, that was a big one. Anybody remember the scented markers your teachers used? I think they were called Mr. Sketch. The Mr. Sketch scented markers. And you could sniff the markers, and it was like sniffing glue, but it was safe. It was good. And they just smelled so good. I remember the grape scented marker. That was a big one from the 90s. I can even date that back to the 80s. That was a good one. Lip smackers, which I guess is, I don't know what that one is. Strawberry shortcake dolls. I didn't play with strawberry shortcake dolls, but some of you ladies might remember that. Anybody remember all the fragrances at Bath and Body Works? It was just so unique. You go to someone's house and their mom had put all the freight. I think my mother went through this phase back in, I was in, was in high school. I don't remember. She went through it's called cherry blossom or something. And every room in the house smelled like the Bath and Body Works showroom, but it was some cherry blossom thing. She thought that was fantastic. I can still smell it in my head right now. If I went to a Bath and Body Works, I assume they're still open. If I went to one today and I found that cherry blossom thing, it would take me back to my childhood. Teen Spirit deodorant. That's where that song "Smells Like Teen Spirit" came from. A Floam. That was a part slime and part other stuff. As I remember Floam. My nephew had some of that. Anyway, that's it. That's your question today. What are some scents that you recall from the 1990s that take you back into in Memory Town? Memory Town. Ray says Mad Dog 2020 and Brute. Brute. I thought of Brute forever. In the pre-show meeting, producer Chad said Old Spice. And I can kind of remember Old Spice. When I go to the cologne, I want to smell good as a young teenager kid, and you wanted to cover up. Our Lois says Japanese cherry blossom. Oh my goodness, you would thought my mother lived in a house in the 90s that had cherry blossoms growing in the backyard, and she didn't, but she thought she did. The Japanese cherry blossom. She just loved that. And if I can smell it today, and if I went back to like a Bath and Body Works, I'm sure I would go, wow. I haven't smelled that in forever, but I can smell it in my mind. It's this weird thing. I skipped the Brute thing, the Old Spice thing. Yeah, I went straight to the green bottle of Polo cologne. You had to have a green bottle of Polo, and then they came out with a blue bottle of Polo, and that's junk. That's junk. But I don't know if anybody ever wears the Polo anymore. Occasionally you'll smell somebody, you get a whiff of someone say, they're wearing Drakkar. Old Spice. Yeah, that was a deodorant. As the youngsters grew up in my house, they learned to put on deodorant. Old Spice, because Old Spice has all these weird scents of deodorant. Not my style, but they did it. Yeah, but so the Old Spice I think of is not the Old Spice that came in that little bottle that you had to lift up the tab and you sprinkle it out as aftershave. Yeah, I remember that. I think my dad probably had some, or my grandpa, but I was never into the Old Spice or the Brute, but I can remember it. And occasionally, I do remember you'd get a gift set with some like house slippers or shoes or something and a bottle of Brute, and you'd give it to your grandpa. That was it. Ray says barbershop hair gel for him. You know what I also remember the smell of, and I still probably have some product in my home, is in the mid to late 90s, a product for men's grooming came out called American Crew. But I was grown by then. I had my own career, my own life by then. But I talk about the growing up thing. So, and I mentioned this scent before, and we'll go to others from scents. You ready? If I smell the old Pine Sol, I've told you this before, it brings back that. I don't think my mother knew there was another cleaning surface or fragrance for our home except Pine Sol. And so you took the Japanese cherry blossom, and on cleaning day when mom was at it, you took the Pine Sol, and I can't tell you what that combination was, but it probably wasn't good. It was a big one, Pine Sol. And then at summer camp as a kid, we'd go there, and you had to clean your dorms up every day to try to get a contest for the front of the lunch line is what we were trying to win. And we didn't know how to measure Pine Sol. They had bottle. We just dump it all of that. Floor was a sticky mess. It never got really rinsed properly. We were overusing it, but we were 12 or 13, we didn't know. We were just trying to get to the front of the lunch line. All right, Kevin says Ray says barbershop hair gel. Kevin says in the early 1980s, my parents took us to a restaurant called Coachman's, and the smell of cigarette smoke with bacon and eggs and maple syrup and pancakes was awesome. You know, that's a great point. The cigarette smoke that we grew up with is fantastic. Occasionally, I will walk into, now you can't smoke it. You're not supposed to smoke cigarettes anywhere. Occasionally, I remember as a kid and a high schooler walking into the high school stadium. And we had a big high school stadium. And you walked in there, and some of the guys were standing out by the gate smoking cigarettes. Maybe they smoked inside. But the smell of a Marlboro or a Camel or whatever they're smoking, I don't even know the brands, Virginia Slims, or I don't know, at an outdoor sporting event in the crisp fall air, that is a very reminiscent smell, and it's not offensive at all. The smell of cigarette smoke outside, walking through a crowd, is sometimes nostalgic for me. That might sound weird, but it is. It's kind of a nostalgic thing, the cigarette smoke. I can still take myself back to, I still announce high school football games on occasion. And when I announce the games, I'm walking over to the press box and someone is outside the gate smoking having a smoke break, which you're not even allowed to do that. You're not supposed to smoke on the campus, but smokers are going to smoke. And sometimes I smell them and I'm not one of these that go, oh, I kind of go, oh, that takes me back to the 90s. Yeah, take me back. All right, a couple more, then we'll go to first guest of the day. Jim says visiting friends' home that smelled like Aquanet incense at Boone's Farms and beer. That's the thing. There's so many fragrances. It's like my mom would mix the Japanese pine cherry blossoms with the pine sol, and it smelled like the cherry blossoms were growing in a pine forest. It was a bizarre mixture. But yeah, the pink stuff, Todd says that the janitor spread on puke in the elementary school. That also reminds me of another smell. When they first came out, or we could first afford to buy it, I guess. Maybe it had been out forever. Cat litter that had the fragrance in it. It wasn't just regular cat, had fragrance in it. I can still remember as a kid, one of my chores was to make sure the cat litter box was clean. And when we started using that, I can still smell that cat litter that we had to put in the cat litter box. That was one of my chores as a kid, changing the cat litter box. I've been shoveling and scooping crap for a long time in my life, and that's how I put up with so many of you. You're welcome. That the pink stuff the janitor spread on the I don't remember having a smell, but I can remember the janitor's closet at school. You went down there to get the eraser cleaners. This thing you spun, and you could get it, and it just smelled like that stuff and other cleaning chemicals. Yeah. All right, there's your nostalgic smells from the 1990s or whenever it is you grew up. And I bet right now you can still taste them and or smell them in your head. And right now, I'm wishing I had a diner that I could have some bacon and eggs, some pancakes, and somebody smoking in the corner. That'd be fantastic. Remember walking into McDonald's as a kid? You smell the cigarette smoke? Yeah, it used to be ashtrays, little metal ashtrays on the tables. And as a kid, we thought it was fun to stomp them because it'd be flat like a flying saucer, use them as Frisbee. Vicks Vapor Rub. I still always have, it's like a family tradition. We always have Vicks Vapor Rub somewhere in the house in case it's needed. And the more older I've grown, the more times you can look up what Vicks Vapor Rub does. It'll do anything. I mean, it will actually, I think it probably heals cancer. I don't know. It does a lot of stuff. Yeah. That I get slathered down with that when I was a little kid. A little hard time breathing, a head cold. Mama makes that slathered all over my chest. Yeah, I felt better though the next day. Vicks Vapor Rub. That is a big time. It's a big time. What was the other one? My mother was I got to get to my guest. Mentholatum, I think was what it was called. It was like an opponent to Vicks, and they were I guess they were competitors. And yeah, Ben Gay. Oh, who remembers the smell of Ben Gay? Yeah, that's a stink that you'll never forget. But made you feel better, and it made great jokes when you were a junior high kid making jokes about Ben Gay. Very funny. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we must get back on track because this is a serious news discussion show, and Jared Knott is waiting patiently for me to shut my pie hole, and I want to welcome him into the show. First of all, Jared, good morning, sir. How are you?
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here again.
I apologize for yapping. I looked at the clock and says, shoot, I thought I was right on time and a little overtime. First of all, let's talk about the books. I want to get that right up front because people need to get your books, Tiny Blunders, Big Mistakes. And you got a couple of these out there that give people a fun look at history of little things that happened that changed the course of where we're at today. I'll let you plug the books first, and then we'll get to some topics.
Yes. I have two books. Book one's been out 5 years. It sold over 38,000 copies, won 7 awards. I'm very proud of that. Book two is out just recently. It's off to a very good start. The Minson Bulletin, my fellow Minsons, published an excerpt from it in the January edition of Wrong Way, Corrigan, and it's off to a great start. And so a lot of fun to read. Go to the website, tinyblundersbigdisasters.com, and it's like an amusement park for history buffs. And they have, for example, we have a portrait gallery there with 27 personalities with a little bit of dirt on each one. And we have a fun quiz we have there. And we also have the Instagram reels. We have a John Wayne reel, an Elon Musk reel, plus also a Watergate reel. So it's kind of a fun place to visit. We have a special this week. TinyBlundersBigDisasters.com. Thank you.
TinyBlundersBigDisasters.com. I like to lead because sometimes we run late on an interview, then you kind of shove that in at the end, and then you don't get to push the book. So I like to give you guys the opportunity to do that right up front. Folks who don't know, you're not just an author, you're a decorated U.S. Army combat infantry officer with the 1st Air Cavalry Division in Vietnam, and a historian. And you still to this day watch these events happening around us. And I'm sure sometimes you watch something, you go, that's going to be in a book one day because that was a tiny mistake that led to a big disaster. And you also probably watch things from just a perspective of having served in the military. And let's talk about something. President Trump has recently said he thinks Cuba might be a friendly takeover. He's not sure, but he's pretty sure that Cuba's going to get taken over here. Let's talk about this. Are these going to be big victories or big mistakes that we are engaging in? Almost inadvertently, the dominoes are falling for some of these horrible regimes. Give me your take on it. Cuba could be next on the list. Are these going to be judged one day as big mistakes or big victories?
Well, we have a big secret weapon, and that is, of course, Marco Rubio, who is his family was Cuban. They came from Cuba not that long ago. Of course, obviously, he speaks the language, and there's a lot going on behind the scenes. You have senile old leaders who don't know what they're doing. Cuba is an absolute mess. They used to produce a lot of sugar cane. No more. They used to have a large tourist industry. No more. They had other things going on. Support from Venezuela. No more. So they're kind of standing on wobbly legs, and there's a serious chance of a takeover. Now, whether it's going to be a friendly takeover, whether it's going to be a hostile takeover, they're probably in communication with the generals inside the military in Cuba. Certain deals may be made, certain promises, and so on and so forth. The only thing that reminds me of way back, like 1904, when Theodore Roosevelt was president, he was able to take over Panama without a shot being fired. The Panamanians wanted to be free from Colombia, and so they made deals with the generals. A lot of money was exchanged. Some generals became rich, and so with no violence, with no conflict, Panama was created and became a separate country. Possibly, it's a long time ago, but possibly something like that could happen in Cuba. I'm sure a lot of deals will be made with military leaders and other kind of influential people within Cuba, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Is friendly or non-friendly? We don't know. But what can happen in any of these countries? We've navigated beyond it in Venezuela. Maduro's gone, and the country did not collapse into chaos because we had, I guess, a leader that we said, "Hey, you mess up, you could end up in jail with Maduro." So we've held that one together. But sometimes when you have these great big political changes and tyrannical regime collapses, it can cause chaos in the country. Give me your thoughts. If the regime, I hear it's not being covered much, but there's protesting in the streets of Cuba. I have some sources that told me that in some places people are on the streets. They're ready for a change. If the Castro-based regime collapses, are we going to have a humanitarian crisis? And they already have energy shortage. Are we going to have a boats fleeing across to try to get to America? What would happen, and how do we prevent the worst case scenario happening if the regime goes down there in Cuba?
Well, just background there on the Castro regime. Some years ago, I was reading approximately 78,000 people were shot, executed for trying to leave Cuba to go to the United States. And because Castro was left of center, a kind of a leftist socialist Cuban, he got a lot of favorable press from our mainstream media, or at least not much negative press. If it had been a right-wing government killing 78,000 people, it would have been a huge amount of exposure. So we got a little bit of a soft touch from it, but a horrible, horrible administration, killing tens and tens of thousands of their own people. What's going to happen next? Marco Rubio could probably answer that question better. And I'm sure the communication not only with the military leaders, the generals, probably other influential individuals within Cuba, and of course, many expatriate Cubans who are very successful in Florida and other places who would like to go back to Cuba and help to run a new government. But there's a serious chance of there being a non-violent takeover of Cuba. But again, Marco Rubio would know better. But it could happen. It's happened before, and it could happen again. What we want to avoid at all costs is what happened in Iraq, where we stood down the Red Guard. We fired all the bureaucrats. Now you had an empty country, and you go in there and try to rebuild it from scratch, and you have all kinds of protests against Americans, a lot of people bombing Americans, explosive devices, so on and so forth. So that's what's to be avoided. What's done in Venezuela, where we take our enemies and make them friends and have them operate in our interest, that's the best solution without any additional shots being fired.
There was speculation that Cuba could have fallen really a week after Venezuela fell. They're still cut off from Venezuelan oil. There's still, I think, domestic aircraft are told, don't come in here. You may not be able to get out. We don't have enough fuel. Again, we were told it was on the brink weeks ago, and yet somehow that regime is still hanging on. What do we know about how close the regime is? Is it just waiting for one more straw to hit the camel's back before it breaks? Or have we been oversold how volatile the Castro-centric historic regime is?
Well, you have, again, some senile, some elderly leaders there who I'm sure want to hang on to power. They do not want to be sent to prison. They don't have to be exiled off in wherever in Egypt or something like this. So they're going to be hanging on. Now, have people behind them happy to get rid of them if they can find themselves in a better place as a result. A lot of different moving pieces and parts. So, but the key thing is they have nothing to prop them up. They have the energy that was coming from Venezuela, which is gone. It's gone. The sugarcane is not being harvested. The tourist industry has long since collapsed. There's nothing holding them up. So what's going to happen now? A good strong push, but we want to avoid. We don't want to send troops in. We don't want to go in and the Cubans start shooting Americans and vice versa. So they're looking for some way to pull the rug out from under the old leadership, make a deal with the old leadership, make a deal with the new leadership, make a deal with the military, et cetera, like that. Exactly how what's going to happen, I don't know, but I think they're going to avoid a military takeover at all costs. We don't want to see blood in the streets. The worst thing that can happen, you have headlines in the New York Times and Washington Post about 17 Americans killed because of an IUD or because of a conflict in the streets, et cetera. That's what they're trying to avoid as a huge priority.
The voice of Jared Knott, if you're new to the show, he's a decorated U.S. Army combat infantry officer with the 1st Air Cavalry Division in Vietnam. He's also a historian. He's written great books, and you might want to get a copy of it. The author of Tiny Blunders, Big Disasters, The Many Mistakes That Changed the World Forever, and talking about some of the geopolitical turning points we're facing right now from his view as a historian and someone who has served in our military. Let me get your thoughts on this. Will we look back one day and judge this period of several weeks that we're living through that the Trump administration, Marco Rubio, Trump, Hegseth, they were more strategic in things that we ever know? For instance, I was reading some commentary that the reason they had to take out the Venezuelan regime first is that would make the Iranian regime fall quicker. It would also further choke down. It's kind of like phases. So Venezuela was the natural first. That leads and sets up some more success in Iran. And then just the dominoes keep falling, or maybe the butterfly effect keeps happening, and the wind of the butterfly is now hitting Cuba. And it really not accidental or happenstance that the Trump administration knew that of the dominoes that needed to fall, Venezuela had to be the first, Iran had to be the second, and now what's going to be the third and first? Do you think it was that strategic and planned out by the administration, or do we just kind of stumble on to this effect of tyrants falling left and right?
No, I think there was a lot of very, very careful planning. Now, Biden administration, their withdrawal from Afghanistan was a sloppy mess, very poorly planned or not planned, encouraging Putin to begin his war, again, very sloppy mismanagement of the situation. So we have some very bright people, J.D. Vance, Marco Rubio, General Kane, et cetera, and other people Doug Burgum, other people who are planning very, very carefully what's going to happen. That's not to say that there can't be surprises or things to go wrong. We have a situation that may not have been anticipated fully in the Strait of Hormuz, and that's this little mosquito fleet that they have. It's easy for them to go out there and drop mines into the water there that float underneath the surface, and as a boat comes by, of course, it can blow it up. A ship goes by, it can blow it up. And that's going to be a very nettlesome problem to deal with. They say it can be taken care of in 3 or 4 weeks. We're going to have to be patient And of course, the price of oil has gone up as a result. And there's tankers being blown up or catch on fire there in the Straits. So we got a tough situation there. Maybe that's something they didn't anticipate. Careful planners that they were. But I think the solution can come there. But if we got, it's not going to be an easy 1, 2, 3 the way Venezuela was. So we just have to hope that the Trump administration, brilliant and well organized as it is going to be able to pull this off and come out in a good place in 3 or 4 weeks.
I want to, before we have to depart, talk about the books again, but I also want to just get a perspective from your combat experience, your service of your country, Vietnam, and all this. Guys like J.D. Vance, Hegseth, people in maybe the Gen X era, which I'm in, we look at what's happening in Iran with trepidation that we don't want another forever war like we had after September the 11th. There's a lot of Republicans in Donald Trump's camp that like, what are we doing? This is a foreign entanglement. And we look at it all from the perspective of what happened in Afghanistan, the first Gulf War, the second Gulf War that affected my generation, their generation. Guys that served in Vietnam have a whole different paradigm, fighting a battle, not being allowed to win, armchair quarterbacks in D.C. making decisions. I mean, the perspective that you bring from being in Vietnam and all the things that were happening back home and when you returned home, and then having lived through as an adult watching the Gulf War region in chaos, what runs through your mind when you watch what's happening in Iran? Are there fears and trepidations that we somehow repeat something that happened in Vietnam? Fears and trepidation about the Gulf War? What is your paradigm? What lens are you looking at this through?
Yeah, well, there's the old quotation from George Santayana that those who fail to learn the lesson of history are doomed to repeat it. The Trump administration looked at what was happening in Iraq. They looked at what happened in Afghanistan. They are doing everything they possibly can to avoid a Vietnam situation where we send in troops, a lot of casualties. It goes on and on and on with no end. They're trying their very, very best and done a meticulous, well-planned, professional job. And again, coming back to the point, that's not to say that we're not going to hit some stumbling blocks and some difficult situations. On our side is the fact that 90% of the Iranian people want a new government, that they would destroy the Air Force, they destroyed the Navy, they destroyed their anti-missile system, airplane missile system. So all that's going well, but we've got this problem there with the Straits of Hormuz, which has a solution in it, but it's going to take patience. And the American voter has some patience, but not a lot. So the test is going to be, is it well planned and well organized enough, and the execution of the military is going to be sharp enough that we can solve the problems and come out with a good place in the end. There's the old quote from Abraham Lincoln that if we come out right in the end, all that was said against us will not matter.
Yeah.
If we come out wrong in the end, 10 angels swearing that we were right will make no difference. So we've got to have a happy ending.
Yeah. Jared Knott is my guest. We'll talk one more time about the website. But Jared, I think we've got a few more weeks in Iran, straightening out the Strait of Hormuz. Supposedly the U.S. military may start escorting. The Japanese are now talking about escorting some tankers too, because even the Chinese say, we don't like what you did in Iran, but we need that oil out of there. So it seems like the international community may work together to get that pretty much open. Cuba, though, on the other hand, is just 90 miles off our shore. The people there are just citizens who have been oppressed. They're not part of a radical Islamist death cult. They're not waiting to be martyred. They're really just waiting to be free. Can you imagine what Cuba would look like if that regime falls and American investment happens there? I mean, the Marriott, the Hilton, the beachfront property, U.S. investment into Cuba, I think we'll have that place turned around literally within weeks or months, and give it a few years, and Cuba will become a shining star of U.S. investment and capitalism, and those people will really probably be amazed at how quick their fortunes turn around.
Yes, of course, we have Mandami up there in New York, who is a socialist, and we're going to have a demonstration, I think, is how socialism and or communism does not work. And if you say it happens, they do collapse, and there is a massive American investment made in Cuba, which could very well happen, you're going to see a communist regime switch over to a free enterprise regime. You're going to see how much more glorious and prosperous and happy free enterprise is than socialism, which has failed every single time it's been tried. So that may be what we hope is going to happen. But here's another old saying that for years they used to say, in Latin America. You could win a revolution without the government, without the military. You could win a revolution with the military, but you cannot win a revolution against the military. Of course, then Castro proved that to be wrong. Well, but if we go into Cuba and the military is either passive or on the side of the revolution of the new government, that can work. We just want to make sure they're not opposed to a new government with the leadership of the old senile leaders there, and we have blood bath.
Jared Knott, if folks want to check out your great books, the lessons in history you give in a very fun manner. It's a great way to learn history. You've written it. You were a decorated U.S. Army Combat Infantry Officer, 1st Air Cavalry Division in Vietnam, and now an author. And the one we're talking about, Tiny Blunders, Big Disasters. This is book 2. That means there's a book 1. You may want to get that one, The Many Mistakes That Changed the World Forever. Jared, give that website again. And you said it's like Disneyland there.
Yes, that's right. It's like a amusement park for history buffs. And we said before, we have like a portrait gallery there with 27 personalities with a little bit of dirt on each one. And also we got the fun quiz, and we have 4 free chapters to read there. Have 3 Instagram reels. We have a John Wayne reel, and we have an Elon Musk reel, and we have a Watergate reel. They're fun to watch. So it's a fun 5 minutes just to go there and visit. And the book is also a fun, interesting, lively books to read. And so I think people will enjoy it.
Tiny Blunders, Big Disasters. Jared Knott, I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for hopping on. Good to talk to you again. TinyBlundersBigDisasters.com. That is Jared's website. Go check it out. And it's like an amusement park, my friend. Who doesn't want to go to the amusement park on Friday? So TinyBlundersBigDisasters.com. All right, good to have you here on the show. Don't forget our question of the day, scents of the 1990s, smells of the 1990s, or smells of your growing up era that remind you of something. We talk about, I immediately go to the cologne, and I can still smell. Matter of fact, I can smell it in my head. It makes me want to go to a store and smell the actual bottle, the green Polo bottle. The Drakkar Cool Water was another one that was a big time thing. And the cigarettes at the McDonald's or the diner, that was another scent. So keep those comments coming. I think they're fun, and it takes us all down memory lane. Jim says the smell of Aquanet. Yeah, Aquanet, the hairspray that you had in the 80s and early 90s, you had to get your hair up really high. And it took, especially in Texas, the bigger the hair, the closer to God. And they had big hair. And you had to have that Aquanet, that smell. There was another one my sister used. It was like VO5 is in a pump bottle because we were afraid it would destroy the ozone. I can smell that stuff. That was nasty as well. Anyway, good to have all of you here on the show reminiscing about scents of the 1990s. Play-Doh, it goes back even to the 70s for me as an early kid. Silly Putty, did I have a smell, or was that just the Play-Doh that had the smell? Anyway, scents and smells of the 1990s. There's your question of the day. Comment accordingly. Thousands of earballs will hear this show from around the globe by the end of the day. Don't forget, if we're done here, it loads up as a podcast form, and it will be on Apple Podcast, Spotify, all of the platforms. It'll be out there for everybody. Thousands of earballs will hear the show, even though they're not watching it live. And of course, you can always go back and watch the rest of the show live later on the day on all the streams that we're streaming live on. It's stored right there for a few days, and you can go watch it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we do every Friday, boy, I'm running. I lost 5 minutes on the first monologue. I lost 5 minutes here. Now I'm 10 minutes behind. It's my fault. I know it. Producer Chad is going to be yelling at me, and I'll take the scolding because we're having a good time. Ladies and gentlemen, Sherry Cree is in the green room, ready to talk with all of us, one of our great sponsors of the show, Realtor Extraordinaire. Pay attention if you're in the I-25 corridor of Colorado, especially that's where you need to make sure you know her website, homeswithsherry.com. And if you're outside of that area, but you still want a great realtor, she offers a free referral service, and she can help you. Please welcome to the stage from homeswithsherry.com, Sherry Cree, homeswithsherry.com. Good morning, Sherry. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Jimmy. Good morning.
As a realtor, I know you guys get busy, open house. A lot of people want to go see houses or talk to you on a weekend. Is Friday kind of like your Monday? You're just ramping up for a big weekend, because I'm guessing you're busier. Are you busier on Friday, Saturday, Sunday than maybe the rest of the week, or does it even out?
Well, we typically have a different agenda for each day of the week. We hard to have a complete day off, but the Friday is just gearing up for the weekend. So weekend is a lot of the buyers come out and shop. So
Yeah,
So
yeah.
open houses, showings, yes.
Going to get busy for you. Spring market is in full swing, and let's talk about how active this market is. Spring market's in full swing. How active does it seem? Is it going to be a very busy spring? And are we at the buyer stage or the seller stage of that market?
Yes, so we started this, I started appearing this show about a year ago, and you were kind of surprised when I told you March is probably the peak season for home selling. And then you said, grass are not green yet, flowers
Yeah.
are not there yet, and should we list in March? But we follow this very repetitive seasonality trend for behaviors. And then buyers who wants to be done with the house shopping and then move in and they still want to enjoy summer break. You want to go on a camping trip, you want to go on an international travel. So a lot of the buyers shop in March, April, and then May is a busy season for everybody. The Mother's Day, graduation, weddings, and then May is typically a lot of closing happens, and then the people move in June. So right now is actually a peak of the house hunting season.
Wow. So if you're a buyer, you better get out there because other people are out there trying to pick over the homes that you want. So it's very important to get out there and start early, and that gives you more time if you don't find it. Is it as busy? I mean, interest rates have come down. We've had a change of administration. Is it as busy right now in 2026 this time as you thought it would be? Is it exceeding expectations or right on target? What do you think?
Well, again, depending on if you're a seller, the timing of entering the market, everything. So I highly recommend consult real estate professionals early, way ahead of time, so you have a clear plan of preparation of your home, so that it comes across appealing for your market, and then also correct pricing. So we can strategically create the hot micro market for your listing. So typically I don't recommend like a generalizing, the strategy. So it's very tailored to your listing. And I always recommend plan ahead. Some of my clients planning from last year, and we targeted to hit the market this week, and we did. And we have already 20 showings scheduled for today and tomorrow. So, I recommend, just the planning ahead and then use the professional, expertise to strategize your own listing. That it's very micro market driven.
The planning ahead, they talked with them last year and they put it on the calendar here. Okay, here's what we'll do, pull the trigger. That's the whole timeline strategy you got to call Sherry for and be strategic so you get the best deal, top dollar. Homeswithsherry.com. Sherry, one thing I talk about with you is that you give a portion of your proceeds to Charity of People's Choice, but you also emphasize that you want to serve the needs of families with aging parents. My story, and my mother's been aging, and she's under memory care now. But there's a lot of folks of our generation, the Gen X ones, that see our parents aging, and we know that either something needs to be done or we need to start getting ready to do something. Talk about your focus on serving the needs of families with aging parents, aging mom, aging dad. Talk about your focus and what does that really mean?
Yes. I don't necessarily just work with seniors, but what I experience is as you age, your priority in life changes. And most of the retirees, not necessarily seniors, but most of the retirees, their life priorities become more family, specifically to be part of the grandkids' lives. So, you may want to move from Florida to Colorado because that's where your kids are and then grandkids are. And many of my clients say the motivation for moving is to be part of the grandbaby's lives. So I could help strategize from multi-generational approach. Some of the adult children decide to buy an investment property and rent it to their Asian parents, and or they buy multi-generational home, mother-in-law suite, people call it, and incorporate your Asian parents into your home. Or some people entertain ADU, accessory dwelling unit. So they will build another structure on your property, and then that's where your Asian parents live. And sometimes the family members simply help them sell their home they owned for 40, 50 years. They raised the family there. Now the maintenance of the home is becoming too much, or they need to move to where the medical teams are or closer to the family so they can be cared for. And typically the homes that are owned by seniors, they are sometimes neglected on the maintenance or not updated to today's buyers' likings. So I bring the whole team of contractors and service providers to help the property get ready for the market, and not necessarily remodeling the homes, but help the homeowners clear out the property and clean, and then take care of the key items, and then put on the market. And there's all different ways to sell property depending on the situation.
Yeah. I know you talked one time about you had out-of-state kids dealing with a parent here, and the home, as you said, had fallen into disrepair. You did some sewage piping inspection. The driveway had to be dug up, and the family's out of state, and that's something you stepped in and were happy to kind of help because they were moving the parents, but the kids couldn't deal with it, and that's where you came in as a professional and said, let me help out here, and you arranged it all. You got all the contractors together, and you made sure it's all done.
Yes. I call it real estate is a team sports. So I have a huge network and the support from different service providers. And the recent one that I have a new client, his mother passed away and he inherited her home. And first thing I connected him was with a probate attorney. So you have to be appointed as a personal representative of the estate first. Even if your name is named on will, you still have to go through the process and appointed by the court. And then I'm bringing in a professional organizer to help him expedite the emptying out the house process, and then all the cleaning and stuff. And then we're going to put on the market in an auction format. So the reason that he decided to use the professionals' help to get the house on the market was because right now is the peak selling season. So if you could do it too. He's retired himself, but if you do it yourself, it's going to probably take 3-4 months, and versus bringing in a professional. And even if you pay for those service, you get to hit the market while it is active. So.
Wow. You said that auction format, especially in Colorado, works well when the market's hot. You're saying, well, the opening bid on that's pretty affordable, but people get that bidding, and sometimes you can get more than you could have done just with the listing. So there's options out there for everybody, and just depends on what your goals are. And folks just need to start planning ahead. And the old saying, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, and the next best time is right now. The best time to plan your real estate move was several months ago, but the next best time is today to start doing that. So people need to get in touch with you. The buying season is underway, peak season right now. So if you didn't plan ahead, you still need to start making that conversation today with Sherry. Our website right on the screen, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com, homeswithsherry.com. Sherry, I think we covered it all. I appreciate your time, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Thanks. Homeswithsherry.com. That's your website. And again, listen to the words of wisdom from Brother Jimmy, is that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time's today. And the best time to plan your move or your downsizing, your upsizing, dealing with your parents' situation was last month or the month before, but today's the next best time. So make sure homeswithsherry.com. Go to the website, phone numbers there, contact form, you'll find it all. And you owe it to yourself. Again, that Interstate 25 corridor in Colorado, you owe it to yourself to reach out to her and put her. You're going to interview, you're going to talk to a couple of realtors. I know, neighbor Bobby over there, he's got a real estate license and hadn't done anything with it. Why waste time with him? But hey, that's just me. And somebody at your Sunday school class, you put Sherry on the list, talk to her, and let her earn that privilege of representing you in your real estate transaction. Homeswithsherry.com. It's amazing how many topics I have not gotten through this week. I just must be blabbing a lot. Numbers are good. I guess it's okay, but I've got several stories. Well, we kind of brushed on them. The voter ID problem. I do want to get this here because next week when we get together, the Senate is going to, and we'll talk about this next week, the Senate is going to be making a move forward with the Voter ID Save America Act. And it looks like John Thune and the limp-wristed leadership that he provides and the feckless Republican Party are going to cave to the tyrants on the Democrat Party, even though the majority of Americans, Republican and Democrats, think we should have voter ID for elections. But hey, your politicians in Washington, they don't really honestly give a rat's ass about what you want. It's all about maintaining their perch of power, and that's from both sides of the aisle. Both sides of the aisle. That's what a lot of these people are motivated by. Do you think Mitch McConnell kept his death grip of power with his death look there in the U.S. Senate because he was looking to serve America better? Or was Mitch McConnell just a power-grubbing, power-hungry old guy that wanted to keep his perch of power, his perch of influence, his perch of money and donors? That's where they come from. They're money-grubbing whores is what most of them are in Washington, D.C., and they don't really care what 80 to 90%. Now, here's what I want to follow. I'm going to follow some tracking polls over the weekend, but the Voter ID Save America Act comes up for vote next week in the U.S. Senate. No date, I think, has been set. Heard Tuesday, but not sure. There's still gridlock. Republicans aren't going to break the gridlock. We're going to keep letting this stupid filibuster clog up and gunk up the works in the U.S. Senate and stop progress for America. And you and I are upset about it, right? Well, polling shows that even most Americans think we should have voter ID, and when they know what the Save America Act, they're very much for it. 80% plus, 70 to 80%, 90% in some polls. Americans are apathetic. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. What, are you angry at your politician? I don't know. America, you get what you ask for. You get what you pay for. You get the apathy of America. Even though this is a topic they say on paper, I really am passionate about this topic, voter ID. Most Americans have such apathy that these money-grubbing whore politicians and limp-wristed fools like John Thune don't really hear your voice. They don't really know that you're angry about it. They see the poll, but they say, you know what, America's polling 80% on this issue, but we don't care. America's going to be too stupid to take charge and to let us hear. And so what I'm telling you is they have not heard from enough Americans. And I don't know what to do that. You can't stop stupid. If America is 80% on an issue and yet doesn't care enough about the future of their country and the sanctity of our republic and the beauty of our democracy to actually take a stand and let these politicians know that you're not taking this anymore and that this is a bill that they need to take action on, then America is going to end up in the country that it is and will continue to slide downward, and the sanctity of our elections will continue to be violated. And then before long, you have people that aren't just as I said, you'll have people that aren't just blowing up synagogues and shooting up nightclubs in Austin. We'll have those kind of terrorists, but without the sanctity of our elections, we'll have terrorists on our voting rolls, enrolled, listed voting, and making decisions politically and culturally for our nation that they have no right with as a citizenship because we're not checking voter ID. John Thune and the Republicans, Chuck Schumer and the Democrats, are setting America up to have a failed republic, and they're setting us up to where domestic terrorists don't always go into nightclubs and shoot it up. Domestic terrorists don't always drive their cars into synagogues. Domestic terrorists don't always get inspired by ISIS and drive into or walk into Old Dominion University classes and kill people. A lot of times domestic terrorists with bad intent vote in our elections, and John Thune and Chuck Schumer don't seem to care about that, and they're fine with terrorists on the voter rolls and making sure that people go to the voter box and no ID required. It's very stupid. It's very bad. And John Thune and Chuck Schumer, the leaders of the respective parties, will be seen as disasters in the footnotes of America if they don't pass this bill, and they need to pass it soon. John Thune, if you and your colleagues are listening, stop being a pansy. Stand up. The Republic is in the balance because again, they'll drive into synagogues, they'll shoot up nightclubs, and they'll register to vote so that they can destroy America from within, and they can destroy us by being on the voter rolls and destroy us without ever firing a shot. And we got to stop it. America, apathy is not an answer in this. Apathy is not an answer. You got to call John Thune's office, and you got to let people know. And not just a trinkle. It needs to be a flood. It needs to be every day, every minute, voicemails, letters, emails, tag them in social media. You got to take action. Apathy will lead to the destruction of our country, and you cannot be apathetic about this. All right, time for the stolen meme section of the show. But before I do, I beseech you, therefore, brethren, you know Sunday is the 15th. Payday. A lot of people 15th and 30th or 1st and 15th. I get it. Sunday is also a Sunday, which means most of you who get paid on the 15th will open your direct deposit. You got paid today. Now, I don't mean to put my grubby little fingers on your paycheck. The government does enough of that, okay? But it is a reminder that some of you say, you know, next time I get a couple of extra bucks, I want to give it to charity. I want to give it to Rivers Promise. Today's the day to do that. Today is absolutely the day to do that. We are about 1 week away from today. I will be in the final wrestling match to try to make our March numbers work for the charity. And as I said, January, February, March, even part of April become very tough on the fundraising front because a lot of people overspend over the holidays. They feel like they gave their quotient. They wait till November, December to give their charitable gifts. And I get that. I appreciate that always. But we could use your help today. Riverspromise.org. Would you make that donation? If you've heard me talk about taking care of the orphans and the widows and education being the latter, the kids used to climb from the pit of extreme poverty, I'd like you to make that donation day. We'll do the stolen meme section of the show, but I got a note from Jonas, one of my field director there, senior field director in Rwanda, and I didn't know what he meant. And then I kind of thought, I'm like, okay, I'm losing something in translation, rather reply. He just sent me a note and talked about how they handle absentees. And he sent me the roll sheets of all the classrooms at Legacy Christian Academy. And I'm like, I don't know why I need to see this, but he sent it to me, and so I'm reading him. And then he says that when a student is absent, we send one of our staff members from the school out to go check on them. There's no phone-in system that, you know, you call the absentee office. It doesn't happen that way. This is how they found out a couple of weeks ago that somebody passed away, and that's why 2 or 3 boys who all stayed in that home, these orphans, weren't at school. They sent an employee out. Why are you at school? And they, you know, it's several miles walk, and they said, well, our widow has passed away. We don't know what to do. And so there's no phone in when there's an absentee. Well, what's interesting is when I started reading what Jonas had sent me, the roll call in the classroom, it is rare. A couple of hundred kids, kindergarten through 5th grade right now. And there are days of all of the hundreds of kids we have, 0 absences, 0. The roll sheet he sent me, there was like 1 absence in 3rd grade. It's really unbelievable. And what he was trying to communicate, and sometimes the English translation is not all that great, is that kids in Rwanda aren't like our kids. I don't want to go to school today. I have a tummy ache. All the excuses we made. Man, these kids bounce out of bed. First of all, they see the hope of reading and writing, and they see the poverty around them. They know that speaking English, all the things we teach them is powerful. And sometimes it's just much more simple. If they get to our school and if they're not absent today, they're going to get food. If they skip school, they're not eating that day in most of those situations. And so I couldn't figure out why Jonas sent me the roll sheets and the roll call. You know, Jimmy Lakey in class present here. You know, remember that? Every time they call roll in their classes, it is rare to have an absence. And when they do, we send an employee out to go check on what happened because it's so rare. And that's the amazing thing that you have to understand is that you are literally giving kids hope. You're giving them a reason to wake up in the morning, and this is a moment they leave the homes they live in, which are oftentimes just shanties and shacks, and I've seen some bad ones, and we try to fix them as best we can. That's not our primary focus, but we do what we can. But I'll tell you, you give these kids a reason to wake up in the morning, and they don't make excuses. They go post haste to the school because they're escaping the confines of dirt and poverty. They're also getting a meal, 2 meals a day. That's the hope you're giving them. And just imagine that if our kids in America went to school as willingly as the kids in Rwanda go to school, America would be a much better place, and we probably wouldn't be so apathetic when it comes to the Save America Act. These kids want to learn, and they want to eat. That said, today's the 13th, Sunday's the 15th. You get paid today. Maybe you don't get paid today. I'm just using that as an example to say, would you contemplate a Friday donation? Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. You're not just giving some charity outfit where 1,000 people are on salary in some fancy office in America. We don't have an office in America. We do not have an office. We have, we do not. If there's work done, producer Chad and I find a neutral spot to work out of. We host board meetings sometimes at my home. We ain't a fancy organization, but we're doing some pretty amazing things, and we only do it with your help. So make a donation. Riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org, riverspromise.org. Today would be a great day to do that. And again, we're beginning that 7-day count before I go into panic mode and lose more hair trying to make the March bills all work out. All right. I appreciate you doing it. Riverspromise.org. And if nothing else, okay, I know if you're not going to give, how many raise your hand and say, I'll say a prayer today for Rivers Promise? Thank you. A couple more hands. Thank you. Better. All of you. I beseech you, therefore, that you should. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Stolen memes section of the show. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. I keep telling myself, Mary, you don't need another old-fashioned. But thankfully, my name's not Mary. I was reading that in real time. I did not know the ending of that. I did not know the punchline. I don't see these memes ahead of time. Producer Chad thrust them on me. And I hate to use the word thruster on producer Chad, but I just did. My name's not Mary. Mary, you don't need any more tequila. My name's not Mary. Okay. Round and round the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. There's Marco Rubio manually clearing naval mines from the Strait of Hormuz. There's his new job. Marco. These things crack me up. I sent producer Chad some an email last night, too. But not that one. That's a good one. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Megyn Kelly goes back to eating, back to normal after eating a Snickers. What's happened to Megyn and Tucker? You know, I wonder how much of it is they've had a mental break, and it's like, did something happen in both of them? Or, I hate to say it, it is, I know they've gotten thousands of followers, but monetizing these platforms isn't easy. And I wonder sometimes if, like, what's her name, Candace Owens? Sometimes I wonder if they just say crazy stuff to keep getting clicks, and then they get talked about again. I don't know. Somebody needs to send Tucker some. Yeah, I unsubscribed to the Tucker Network. I really did. I just got tired. It's just not worth it anymore. Yeah, it's one thing. Everybody knows I'm cheap. I don't. People are like, have you watched Landman or what? It's Paramount Plus. I don't pay for that crap. No, I pay for one thing. I'm not going to do it. I pay for Netflix and Amazon. I get that, but I'm not going to pay for everything. But I paid for Tucker. Not anymore. I'm like, he's gone off the deep end. God bless his heart. It's a Southern thing. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. This is from a thing called the Chad Life. I don't know if this is producer Chad. I don't know. When I finally break, it'll be because I had to type my email address with a TV remote. Oh, gosh. Ain't that the truth? Oh, hate that. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. Me, when someone doesn't believe me and they Google it and see that I'm right. What would you say in the South? You better be careful. Your face is going to freeze like that. Round around the globe we go. That's not me. I don't look that feminine, do I? Okay, Marco Rubio after Trump chose Mark Wayne Mullen to replace Kristi Noem as the head of DHS. Whew. Now he's got to go to put on the diver suit and clear the landmine, the mines in the Strait of Hormuz. Whew, he dodged a bullet on that one. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. This is so true. This is probably my motto. I wasn't always so political, but you came after my God. You came after my children. You came after my country. You came after my freedom. So here we are. Here we are. Round around the globe we go. Where we steal the memes from, no one knows. There we go. That is the short meme release today, which is good because I talked a lot, yapped a lot, and you're probably, I wouldn't say it. You're not tired of hearing me, but I must go. We must do other things. A lot of you need to get back to work. You're being slackers, and you need to get back to the workplace. Again, thousands of earballs hear this show, and to all of the thousands, I really appreciate you tuning into the program. We've survived here over a year. People ask how it's going. I said, always could go better, but we always are grateful for where we're at. Arloa says, last comment of the day, I also unsubscribed to Tucker. Yeah, I don't pay for those things, online services. Tucker was one that I actually subscribed to. And that ended. I was like, screw that. I shouldn't say that. Bad words. I didn't say the bad word. Screw that. Forget it. That's what I meant by F. Delilah. Okay. Everybody have a great weekend. I mean this from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you being a part of the show. If you'd like to reach out to us in any way, whether it's about our charity, whether it's about sponsorship of the show, whether it's just to pass us a funny meme, send it to info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. I say it again, info@jimmylakey.com, info@jimmylakey.com. Until we meet again on Monday morning, good Lord willing, the creeks don't rise and all the equipment works again and we pay the bills once again. I'll see you then. And have a great weekend. Don't forget our charity site is fourriverspromise.com. I'm going to go check the email box here in the next few minutes and see how many of you might have checked in. And I got to be sure to talk about the casino gala. It's less than 2 months away. All right, priority on Monday, casino. I'm making a big note. God bless you. God bless America. I am Jimmy Lakey. Peace. I'm out of here.